Welcome to your Introduction to Statistics, Unit 6, Lesson 3. Today you're going to understand how data sets are produced through observational studies and experiments. To produce data in one variable or in two variables, researchers either conduct observational studies or experiments. If researchers want to be able to show how causation occurs, not just correlation, a well-designed experiment should be conducted. In an observational study, researchers don't assign choices, they simply observe them. They just see what people are doing, or what plants do, or whatever subjects they're studying, what they do. Here's an example of an observational study. In 1981, a study at Mission Viejo High School in California, researchers compared the scholastic performance of music students with that of non-music students. The music students had an overall GPA of 3.59, and non-music students had an overall GPA of 2.91. Since the researchers did not assign students to get music education and simply observed students in the wild as it occurred naturally, it was simply an observational study. Since the study observed grades that the students had already made, it was a retrospective study. If the study observed grades made after the students were selected, then it would have been a prospective study. So retrospective studies study what has happened in the past, and prospective studies selects individuals and studies what happens in the future. Observational studies are valuable for discovering trends and possible relationships. However, it is not possible for observational studies to determine a causal relationship. For example, we don't know if it was already that students who made better grades were more likely to take music classes, and maybe the better grades was something that actually happened before the musical education occurred, or if the musical education somehow made kids smarter and caused them to do better in their courses. We can't determine that from the Mission Viejo study. In order to do that, to determine a cause and effect relationship or causal relationship, a randomized comparative experiment would have to be established. An experiment is a study design that allows us to prove a cause and effect relationship. An experiment manipulates factor levels to create treatments, randomly assigns subjects to these treatment levels, compares the responses of the subject groups across the treatment levels. In an experimenter, the experiment must identify at least one explanatory variable, called a factor, to manipulate, and at least one response variable to measure. In an experiment, the experimenter actively and deliberately manipulates the factors to control the details of the possible treatments and assigns the subjects to those treatments at random. The experimenter then observes the response variables and compares responses for different groups of subjects who have been treated differently. In general, the individuals on whom or which we experiment are called experimental units. When there are humans involved, they are commonly called subjects and participants because people don't really like being called an experimental unit. The specific values that the experimenter chooses for a factor are called the levels of the factor. A treatment is a combination of the specific levels from all the factors that an experiment unit receives. All right. So, if we really wanted to do an experiment on music and academic performance, 100 freshman volunteers would be randomly assigned to either being involved in music or not being involved in music, with 50 in the music group and 50 in the non-music group. The grades of the two groups would be recorded throughout high school, and the group's average GPAs compared upon graduation. The subjects in this experiment would be the 100 freshmen. The factor, the explanatory variable, would be musical involvement, and the response variable would be GPA. Okay, that's it for Lesson 3. Go ahead and do the problems to try on your own. Thank you for paying attention and taking good notes. I will see you in class. Have a good day.